the forest that whispers. There's a reason some forests are left untouched. They breathe secrets, hiding things no one was meant to find. And sometimes, those who venture too deep into them never come back the same. A group of friends thought they were just camping, until the night took a sinister turn. Strange whispers, missing belongings, and an invisible presence lurking between the trees. What started as a weekend getaway quickly became a desperate fight for survival, and not everyone made it out alive. It was supposed to be a weekend of fun and freedom, a chance for 4 friends to escape the stress of life. Mike, Sarah, Ethan, and Jess packed their gear and drove into the heart of a forest known for its scenic beauty but shrouded in old rumors. There were whispers about people getting lost, strange lights flickering between the trees, and things following campers in the night. But they didn't care. After all, what's a good camping trip without a little thrill? By sunset, they had reached the perfect spot, a clearing surrounded by towering pines, far from any trails or other campers. The air was crisp, the sky streaked with orange and purple, and for a moment, everything felt perfect. They built a fire, roasted marshmallows, and told stories, mostly silly except for Ethan's insistence on sharing a tale about the Watcher of the Woods. The legend says there's something out here that follows you, Ethan grinned. It waits until you're alone, until you're far from safety, and once it locks onto you, it never lets go. Sarah rolled her eyes. Okay, Ethan, enough with the creepy stuff. The night deepened, the fire crackling softly. As they settled into their tents, the forest fell silent, too silent. No chirping crickets, no rustling leaves. Just an unsettling stillness, as if the woods were holding their breath. At around 2 a.m., Jess was the first to notice something strange. She heard soft, deliberate footsteps circling the camp, slow, almost cautious. Her heart pounded as she peered through the mesh of her tent. In the dim moonlight, she saw nothing. Yet the sound persisted, always just beyond her line of sight. She thought it might be an animal, but the steps were too calculated, too human. Then she heard it, a whisper, faint and chilling, carried on the wind. Leave, or stay forever. She jolted upright, waking Mike in the tent beside her. Did you hear that? She whispered, her voice trembling, but Mike only grumbled, telling her to go back to sleep. The next morning, Ethan's face was pale. My bag's gone, he muttered. All his gear, his backpack, flashlight, and food had disappeared overnight. They searched the area, thinking maybe an animal had dragged it off, but there were no tracks, no signs of disturbance. Just gone. As the day wore on, things got stranger. Jess swore she saw someone or something standing deep between the trees, watching them. A shadowy figure that vanished as soon as she tried to focus on it. But when she told the others, Mike brushed it off his nerves. You're letting Ethan's stupid stories get to you, he laughed. That evening, the group gathered around the campfire again, though the atmosphere was heavier now. Ethan was uneasy, constantly glancing over his shoulder. Sarah tried to lighten the mood with music, but the sound felt out of place, like it didn't belong in the thick, suffocating silence of the forest. Then the forest fought back. As night fell, the temperature plummeted unnaturally fast, and an unsettling fog crept in. The fire sputtered, refusing to stay lit, no matter how much wood they added. Out of nowhere, Ethan gasped, clutching his arm. Something grabbed me, he shouted, panic rising in his voice. His sleeve was torn, and there were fresh, jagged scratches on his skin, too deep for an accident. We need to leave. Now. They scrambled to pack their things, but as they did, Jess noticed something horrifying. The path they had come in on. It was gone. The trees seemed to have shifted, rearranging themselves like a maze. Every direction looked the same, an endless, dark expanse of forest. Stay calm, Mike insisted, though his own voice wavered. We'll find the way out. But the forest wasn't finished with them. Strange whispers began to fill the air, circling them from all directions. Soft, sinister voices that sounded like their own, mimicking their fears and doubts. You'll never leave. He's already marked. Run, but it won't help. Panic set in. They ran, crashing through the woods in blind terror, but the forest seemed endless, every tree identical, every direction a dead end. Then they saw it, a figure standing motionless among the trees. It had no face, just a shadowy form that seemed to absorb the darkness around it. It's the Watcher! Ethan screamed. It's real! The thing began to move, gliding silently through the mist, faster than any of them could run. Sarah tripped, her scream cut short as the figure loomed over her. Mike turned back to help, but when he reached her, she was gone. Only the fog remained, swallowing her whole. Desperation took over. They sprinted, gasping for breath, not knowing where they were going, only that they needed to escape. But the forest wouldn't let them. The whispers grew louder, the fog thicker, and then they heard it, footsteps, hundreds of them, closing in from every direction. In a last, desperate attempt, they found a small clearing and huddled together, backs against each other, hearts pounding in unison. The whispers stopped, leaving a deafening silence. For a moment, it seemed the nightmare was over. Then Jess saw it, a hand reaching out from the mist. It was pale, twisted, and impossibly long. It grabbed Ethan by the ankle and yanked him into the fog. His scream echoed through the forest, fading into nothingness. Mike and Jess ran, tears streaming down their faces, lungs burning. They stumbled onto an old trail, something they hadn't seen before. With no other choice, they followed it, hoping it would lead them to safety. After what felt like hours, they burst out of the forest and onto a deserted road. Gasping for breath, they collapsed on the asphalt, laughing hysterically with relief. But their joy was short-lived. When Mike pulled out his phone to call for help, he noticed something horrifying. The timestamp on his screen read 2 days earlier. Somehow, they had lost 2 days in the forest, a time gap they couldn't explain. And then, from the woods behind them came a familiar voice. "Where are you going?" It was Ethan. They turned, and there he stood at the forest's edge, smiling, but his eyes were wrong. Too dark, too empty. Jess whispered, "That's not him." Before they could react, Ethan stepped forward, his smile widening unnaturally. "You're coming back with me," he said, his voice dripping with malice. And then the forest swallowed them whole.